And there has been an extensive police operation, a missing persons investigation that was launched with underwater drones, with divers, with specialist teams, with helicopters, drones in the air, with police scouring the riverbanks, police going all the way down, around 10 miles downstream to Morecambe Bay to look for any evidence in relation to Nicola Bulley. Now, there is no formal identity yet of this body that they have recovered from the River Wire, but Lancashire Police have said that is something that they have done this afternoon. They have recovered a body and they are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at this time, and they are treating this death as unexplained. Now, it is actually in the distance that police have been carrying out this extensive search. It's been going on, they say, from around 11:36 when they received a call of reports of a body in the water. And what they are now trying to clearly establish is whether this is the missing mum of two, Nicola Bulley, who we know has been missing for the last 3 weeks or so. What we witnessed earlier today was a police helicopter flying in the sky, but very low to the River Wire, clearly trying to look at something in the water. That was in the air for about 20 to 25 minutes or so, and then that was taken over. It flew off. It was taken over by a police drone. Police divers arrived on the scene, and a number of police officers arrived. They cordoned off a lot of the area, the main road heading down to the area, but also the footpath which leads you to the area where they've been searching. It's our estimate that's about a mile down from the bench where Nicola was last spotted, where her phone was identified, where her dog Willow was, and where the dog's harness was as well, about a mile downstream. Now, police have been scouring this water over the last few weeks, over the last 3 weeks. Now, I think over the last week, it's fair to say that that police operation, the search operation, had scaled back slightly. We'd only seen officers using binoculars on bridges. We'd seen officers using sniffer dogs to try and see if they could pick up any evidence. But that really was the scale of the searching, and a lot of it focused downstream as well. But today we really saw probably the largest search operation for at least a week or so, and that included the police helicopter, the police drone, police divers once again, and a number of senior officers, including the senior investigating officer to the missing persons case of Nicola Bulley. And what Lancashire Police have confirmed to us now is that an underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene after receiving a call at 11:36 of a report of a body in the River Wire. They entered the water and have sadly recovered a body. They say that no formal identification has yet been carried out, so we are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at this time. Procedures to identify the body are ongoing. They say that they are treating this death as unexplained. And let's just have a thought for the family, a family who have over the last 3 weeks been in absolute turmoil. This has been a roller coaster for a family who are just trying to get some answers. We've had no clues. We've had no major evidence as to where Nicola Bulley could have gone. But as police said, they're still trying to identify who this missing person is. But what they did say is Nicola's family have been informed of these developments, and they say that their thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times, and then they say that their privacy should be respected. The River Wire, I have to say, and we've witnessed this over the last 3 weeks, the River Wire is an incredibly tidal river. It moves back and forth constantly. We've seen the water levels rise and fall in a matter of minutes. There's been significant amount of rain over the last couple of days, and that would have played in the way, a role in the way that the river is running and the levels of the water as well. But clearly, this is a significant update in relation to all of this. Police have recovered a body from the River Wire. They're still working out the identification of who that may be and whether it is the missing mum of two, Nicola Bulley, who, as we know, went missing over 3 weeks ago.
Indy, can you just give us a sense? We will read out the statement in just a moment, or I'll do that, from Lancashire Police confirming that a body has been found. Just give us an idea of where it was discovered, how far it was from where Nicola Bulley went missing.
Yeah. So look, Nicola Bulley had dropped her children off at school in the village of St Michael's of Wyre. She took her dog Willow for a walk as normal, and it was down a footpath next to a caravan site where the last known sightings of Nicola were, where her phone was found unlocked, where her dog Willow was found walking or running around between the gate and the bench where the phone was, and the dog's harness as well on the floor next to what is a very cold, and would have been at that time, and often quite deep and often quite fast flowing river Wyre. But this is where we are now, is probably about half a mile downstream, and where police have been searching and where they've clearly recovered this body now is probably about a mile downstream from where that bench was. They are still working to identify who that person is that they have recovered from the water, but they have stressed that Nicola's family have been informed of these developments and that their thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We will hear more from Lancashire Police in due course, no doubt, but that is the latest. Lancashire Police have recovered, sadly, a body from the water after underwater search team and specialists attended the scene following a phone call at 11:36 this morning of reports of a body in the river.
Intiman, many thanks indeed for updating us on this breaking news. And let me just remind our viewers of what Lancashire Police have said in the past few minutes. Their statement in its entirety this morning, Sunday the 19th of February. You may be aware of police activity around the river near to St Michael's. St Michael's on Wyre, that is. We want to provide you with an update on that activity. Intiman has been reporting that for the past couple of hours. It's an intense activity. Well, police go on to say we were called today at 11:36 a.m. to be precise to reports of a body in the River Wyre close to Rawcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water and have sadly recovered a body. No formal identification has yet been carried out, so we are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at the time. Procedures, the statement goes on, to identify the body are ongoing. We are currently treating the death as unexplained. Nicola's family have been informed of developments, and our thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. So that is the breaking news. Police say a body has been found after a search of the River Wyre, not far from St Michael's, where Nicola Bulley disappeared in Lancashire 23 days ago. Let's get the thoughts of our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt. Very good afternoon to you, Martin. So while procedures to identify the body are ongoing, the death is being treated as unexplained. No formal identification right now, but obviously the focus turning to what is going to be a very sad development in the case of Nicola Bulley.
Yes, and her family, according to police, have already been informed of the discovery. And yes, while police emphasise that there is no formal identification yet, I think everybody will think, and everything points to this being the body of Nicola Bulley. And it's probably too early to talk about the police being vindicated in their being adamant that Nicola going into the water somehow was the most likely explanation for her disappearance. If they were right, and it appears that they were, it was always going to be a matter of some time before Nicola's body emerged. Things happen to bodies in water. And of course, there is the continuing changing of currents. bodies move around in rivers. They are difficult areas to search, and we know until today that very extensive searches up and down the 12 miles or so from where Nicola disappeared to the coast where the river empties into Morecambe Bay. There'd been no sign of anything, no sign of a body or indeed any of the clothing that police know Nicola was wearing at the time she disappeared just over 3 weeks ago. I don't suppose it's going to be terribly difficult to determine whether this is Nicola. As I said, there are very graphic descriptions of the clothing she was wearing, and police will be determined not to identify her formally until they have forensic results and they have done DNA tests. And at some point, I imagine somebody from her family will be asked to formally identify her. That's a hurdle that perhaps her partner Paul Ansell will have to overcome at some stage.
And Martin, you've been in Lancashire for us. Such activity, such a focus on finding Nicola, such a close-knit community, desperate for answers.
Yes, and we saw it very obviously when so many of the people in the community, not just Nicola's friends, but lots of people who knew her, lots of people who didn't know her, launched those regular searches to begin with, and then those roadside vigils where for several hours a day, particularly on the weekly anniversaries, members of the public were scattered along the road near where Nicola, they know, went into the riverside with posters of her pictures and simply urging motorists who may have been driving around that time at about 9:15 on the Friday morning, 27th of January, any motorist who regularly used that bit of the road that goes through this rather tiny village, to stop and to look at their dashboard camera footage, and if they hadn't volunteered it to the police, then to do so. And of course, a wider appeal for anybody in the area with CCTV footage. They were urged to contact police if they hadn't already done so. We met lots of family and friends who spent many hours continuing to urge people to come forward if they hadn't the tiniest clue. And it looks perhaps as though that constant urging may have paid off today, because we understand that it was a dog walker or a walker along the riverbank who spotted the body and alerted police just before midday today. So there can't have been anybody in the wider area of that part of West Lancashire who wasn't aware of Nicola's disappearance and the need to keep their eyes peeled. I mean, not just me, but all of my colleagues who've been up there covering the story. Every time we've walked through the fields, walked along the riverbank, we've all been looking for any sign that might have given the police a clue to Nicola's whereabouts.
This is a missing persons inquiry that has literally galvanised the community and the country, hasn't it?
Yes, I mean, 3 weeks after Nicola disappeared, it was still a story that was dominating our news bulletins and the front pages of many, if not all, national newspapers. For lots of reasons, people were captivated by the story of Nicola's disappearance. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons why. There were some very endearing photographs of her. She was the mother of 2 young children. She had a young grieving family. There was the continued hope that she might be found alive. But I think there was also something else. There was Nicola's very ordinariness. She had dropped the kids off at school. She had taken the dog for a walk along the riverbank. A lot of people, I think, could see themselves in similar situations and could empathise with with Nicola and her family. At the same time, through a lot of this, people have been watching those dreadful images of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. And although people, of course, were very sorrowful about what was happening to people there, it wasn't quite the same way. I think there was a personal connection with the disappearance of Nicola Bulley.
All right, Martin, many thanks indeed. We'll be back to you a little later. This is Sky News. Let me update you on this statement from Lancashire Police that they've issued in the last few minutes. It says, we were called today at 11:36 a.m. to reports of a body in the River Wire close to Rawcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water, and have sadly recovered a body. No formal identification has yet been carried out, so we are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at this time. Procedures to identify the body are ongoing. We're currently treating the death as unexplained. Lancashire Police go on to say Nicola's family have been informed of developments, and our thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. So that breaking news in from Lancashire Police in the last few minutes. I want to bring in former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bletchley joining us. Good afternoon to you. So your thoughts about what looks like an extremely sad development in what has been a missing persons inquiry that's gone on for over 3 weeks.
Yes, a very sad and tragic story with this body being found. And I, like so many others, I'm sure our hearts go out to all of those who loved Nicola. It is deeply, deeply troubling aspect now to all of this recent case. And that is this phenomenon of people speculating in a very ghoulish way and trampling all over the location where Nicola went missing, posting videos on TikTok, the rampant speculation and conspiracy theorists all across social media of many, many different platforms. And this is going to be a phenomenon that quite simply the police are going to have to come to terms with. There's going to be a lot of learning taken from this. Because say, for example, and I'm hypothesizing now, there was a murder scene that garnered as much attention and interest as Nicola's missing person inquiry did. The police might have to deploy enormous resources to stop people interfering, to go into locations where they're simply not welcome, where they are more of a hindrance than they could ever be a help. And it's really been exhibited here in this case with the phenomenal levels of interest. And this is not going to go away. This is a new phenomenon that the police are going to have to study, very much take the lessons from, and consider how they might deal with such a phenomenon in the future.
What's this trampling, as you put it, done then to evidence gathering at what is the scene or likely to be the scene of a major investigation?
Well, that's such an apposite question, because there have been, and I don't hesitate to use the word really, idiots that have been seen digging up areas close to where Nicola went missing. And if this was a murder, or say, for example, what happens from time to time, we get serial killers that strike, sometimes with a crime just a few days after another crime and then another crime. A serial killer, Stephen Wright, who operated around Ipswich in a very sort of similar method to what I've just described. If the police have a case like that with multiple crime scenes in a short space of time, and many, many people, TikTokers, for example, who earn a living because they monetize the content that they put out on the social media platforms, this really is something that police officers are going to have to think about long and hard and develop strategies for. We saw in the case of Nicola Bulley that Lancashire Police got a dispersal order And we know that some people have been fined, and I believe somebody was arrested for trying to get into a property that wasn't theirs. But they're going to have to strategize in case they get multiple crime scenes within a short space of time in a fairly limited location, because there could be a danger that evidence could be destroyed, removed on the bottom of somebody's shoe, otherwise trampled into the ground, and that, of course, could be catastrophic to any future criminal investigations.
And just in a sentence, a very, very sad outcome to, likely outcome to this case. Our thoughts will turn to the family, even though we haven't had any confirmation yet, but the family have been informed.
Yes, I'm a parent, and I'm sure that many, many of your viewers are parents, and it sends a shiver down my spine at the very thought, potentially and probably, of two young girls losing their mum.
Peter Blexley, do stay with us. I'll talk to you in just a few minutes. Let me just tell you, our viewers, of our breaking news in the past 25 minutes or so. You're watching Sky News at 3 o'clock, and the breaking news from Lancashire Police in the last hour is that a body has been found in the River Wyre, close to where Nicola Bulley went missing more than 3 weeks ago now, 23 days ago. Let me read you the statement from Lancashire Constabulary. It says, "We were called today at 11:36 a.m. to reports of a body in the River Wyre, close to Rawcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water, and have sadly recovered a body." The statement goes on, no formal identification has yet been carried out, so we are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at this time. Procedures to identify the body are ongoing. We are currently treating the death as unexplained. Nicola's family have been informed of developments, and our thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. We can talk to Peter Blexley now. Thank you for hanging on. And of course, it was always, I wouldn't say always, but more recently, it has been the police, what do they call it, a working hypothesis that Nicola Bulley was in the River Wyre.
Yes, it was, and they made that very clear from one of the very earliest press conferences, and they said they had evidence to support that working hypothesis. I was quite critical back then because I felt it might have helped quell some of the speculation, the rampant speculation that was going on social media and further afield, if they'd made some of that evidence known to the public. Because what it did, it created a void. And of course, any void of information will be filled by gossip, rumour and speculation. And the more the police said at press conferences, please don't speculate, then I'm afraid that had the exact opposite, because people just did speculate rampantly. And of course, and I'm willing to stand up for some criticism here, but this actually happened. One, Superintendent Riley at one of the press conferences said, please don't speculate. And then in answer to a question from a journalist, she herself did exactly that and speculated as to what she thought might have happened. So, you know, the messaging from Lancashire Police has been pretty poor at times. We know there was that dramatic U-turn after the press conference on Wednesday, and the police will need to look themselves in the mirror long and hard and say, how can we improve the messaging? Because getting messages out to the public is so important, so vital, not only to inform the public, but often to get public assistance. For example, in this case, where the police wanted dash cam footage from vehicles. So the messaging is very, very important, and the police desperately need to get it right in future cases. Otherwise, we're going to see more speculation, a loss of trust, because if the public don't trust the messaging, they might, like in this case, not trust the investigation and then decide they'll go out and carry out their own. Hence, so many people made their way to St Michael's on Wire.
Have you ever seen this kind of messaging from a force before?
I don't think I've seen such ham-fisted messaging over an investigation that's gained such widespread attention. And talking of the conspiracy theorists and the TikTokers and the like, if I may, they're at it again. People are now showing aerial views on social media platforms and saying, well, a vehicle could have parked here, for example. A van could have parked near to this part of the river. This is just rampant speculation once again, which the police have got to be aware of, because they've got to get some strategies as to what they're going to do in the future. And let's just hope that when there is, of course, a post-mortem, that there will be, that information is properly conveyed to the public, it's believed, it's trusted, and finally, perhaps, just finally, this rampant speculation might come to an end, and not before time.
Now, Lancashire Police, we know, I was here on Friday when this news broke that they were going to conduct an internal investigation into their handling of the case. Many saying it shouldn't be internal, it should be outside the force.
Yeah, I think with regards to a review of the investigation, then that most definitely should have been an outside force. But of course, that won't be necessary now due to today's very sad news. But in terms of the messaging and the mistakes that were made, I think all of policing needs to look at this. And it'll probably be a matter for the National Police Chiefs Council, or indeed the College of Policing, to look at it all, to break down those press conferences word by word, to see where the mistakes were made. And I could show them that quite simply. And I think even there might need to be some thought given to, is it actually necessary that the police officers hold these press conferences? Perhaps the time might be coming for, shall we say, media specialists who are experienced at being in front of camera, who are good and clear communicators, who have the strength of character and the experience to resist those banana skin questions, which journalists rightfully and inevitably will ask, all with a view to engaging the public and hoping that the public will believe the messaging. The messaging, the detail is important. Any detective will tell you the detail is where the devil resides, which is why it is so important to pay very, very close attention to the detail of what you say.
All right, Peter Blexley, many thanks indeed for joining us for now, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Let's bring in Sky's Inzamam Rashid, who has been following the case since the start, since Nicola Bulley went missing on the 27th of January. So, Inzi, what appears to be a very sad development this afternoon, and this follows a number of searches, quite intense searches in the River Wire that you've been telling us about for the past couple of hours.
Yes, intense searching was going on from what we spotted was around 1 o'clock this afternoon when we saw a police helicopter, which wasn't abnormal. We've been seeing the police helicopter over the last 3 weeks in this village scouring the River Wire, but it was flying incredibly low towards the river and the river banks. And so it was an indication that the police were looking quite intensely at a certain part of the river. We then saw a number of police vehicles speed past and heading towards that area of the river. The helicopter was up for about 20 to 25 minutes. It then flew off, and then a police drone was put up into the air, and again that was looking at that area quite intensely. And then police divers arrived, and they were deployed. They entered the water, and they spent a significant time in the water, all whilst that was was going on. Police had cordoned off a country lane which leads to the point at the river where they were searching, and part of the footpath leading up to that area of the river. It was at 11:36, just reiterating what Lancashire Police have told us, it was at 11:36 that they received a call to reports of a body in the River Wyre close to Rawcliffe Road, that road that they subsequently cordoned off. And whilst all those detailed searches were ongoing, the police divers, the drones, the helicopters, the number of police officers at the scene as well, they clearly had significant information that there was a body in the water. The divers then recovered that body. There was a specialist search team, an underwater search team, and then we saw crime scene investigators arrived, and they erected a white tent, a white and blue forensics tent, which is still up there in the scene. We've seen very senior police officers, including the senior investigating officer for the missing persons investigation of Nicola Bulley, Rebecca Smith, arrive on the scene as well. Now, it's important to stress that police have said there is no formal identification yet of who this is, and they are unable to say whether it is the body of the missing mum of two, the 45-year-old Nicola Bulley, who has been missing for over 3 weeks now. They say that procedures to identify the body are ongoing, but I think what is an important point in their release, that Nicola's family have been informed of these developments, and the police have said that their thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. As I mentioned, police have scoured this river for the last 3 weeks. They've used high-tech, very specialist equipment. They've had resources from a national level come down and help them here in this very rural village of Lancashire. And what they've actually done is searched all the way down to the mouth of the River Wyre. It heads out into Morecambe Bay and into the Irish Sea. So they've really scanned a lot of this river. But one thing I would say about the nature of this river, it's something that I've never seen before. The levels rise and fall in a matter of minutes, and the tidal nature of this river, you see some parts of the river flowing upstream, and then you see some parts of the river flowing downstream. So whatever is essentially in the water, whether it be logs, trees, in this instance a body that has been recovered, it will have moved quite significantly over a period of time. Now, police are still carrying out their work in the distance. We can see a number of officers. We can see a police van. The forensic tent remains up now as well. That drone which was up earlier has come down. But it's clear now from police that they recovered a body at this scene after receiving reports at 11:36. Let's put this into context of what's happened in this very quaint village over the last 3 weeks. We know that Nicola Bulley, a mum of two, had taken her kids to school, dropped them off on Friday morning, the 27th of January. She then took her dog Willow for a walk, as she normally does. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary for her to do, and she took the dog for a walk on her normal route. It was then at around 9:33 where Nicola's phone, her dog Willow, and the dog's harness were all found near to a bench by the River Wyre. They were found by a local, a lady who also walks her dogs in the area. She lives in the area as well, and subsequently the school where her daughters went were informed, and a police investigation, a missing persons investigation, was kicked into action. I think what we have to mention as well, the significant details that police have released in this investigation about Nicola Bulley, the unprecedented levels of personal and private details. They said, this was a woman who had specific vulnerabilities. That's why at the very beginning of the investigation, they named her as a high-risk missing person. That is what they categorized her as. Over 3 weeks down the line, 23 days, and today we've seen a huge huge police presence, a significant update that police have recovered a body, no formal identification yet as to who that may be, from the River Wire after specialist search teams, specialist officers were in the area at a specific part of the River Wire. They actually received a phone call of reports of a body in the water, clearly by people who were nearby. There was a significant operation, and that is the news that a body has been recovered from the River Wire, and police are working now to try and identify who that is. But they have said Nicola's family have been informed of the developments, and their thoughts, as many people's will be watching this, are with them at the most difficult of times.
Inzi, for now, many thanks indeed. We will return to you a little later. Well, Inzi was saying there, wasn't he, that Sky News was made aware of searches going on round 1 o'clock this afternoon. Well, the statement that Lancashire Police have issued in the past, 40 minutes or so, hones in on the time. We were called, Lancashire Police say, at 11:36 this morning to reports of a body in the River Wire close to Rawcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water, and have sadly recovered a body. The statement goes on, no formal identification has yet been carried out, so we are unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at the time. Procedures to identify the body are ongoing. We are currently treating the death as unexplained. Nicola's family have been informed of developments, and our thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. Let's bring in former Scotland Yard Superintendent Nusrat Mehta. Good afternoon to you. Just give me your thoughts on what appears to be a very sad development in the case.
Well, it's extremely sad, and my thoughts, like with everybody else, are with Nicola, her friends and family. Although there's no formal investigation and it hasn't been confirmed, but the police are doing everything. They're going to secure the scenes from this morning. There's been helicopters, drones, specialist search, which is normal procedure. They'll be called and set off so to preserve the scene, preserve possible evidence as we speak. And then it's a matter of waiting to see what the formal identification is.
And that will take time, will it? Preserving, or certainly trying to preserve the evidence? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I think we lost you very slightly there. That will take some time, will it, trying to preserve the evidence?
Yes, so it will take some time. Obviously, they will be doing everything, even when that body is removed. They'll still be doing what they have to do in terms of the area and the forensic searching.
Now, no identification, as we know, at the moment, but clearly Nicola Bulley's family have been informed. Nicola Bulley's family have been informed of development. Sorry, we are having trouble connecting. I hope you can hear me. Are you still there?
Yes,
Can you still hear me? Yeah, so clearly no identification right now, as is the case. The death unexplained, but Nicola's family have been informed of developments. I mean, this investigation, Lancashire Police have said, haven't they, they've always believed it's their working hypothesis that Nicola Bulley was in the water. So does this vindicate the force in any way, this discovery?
Well, I mean, straight from, I think, 3 days after, that was the main hypothesis by the superintendent. They've worked on 3 hypotheses, and in any investigation, you have to have a hypothesis. Does this vindicate the way that the case has been handled? No. It's been a total PR disaster for them, and there are many, many lessons to be learned from this, not today, but moving forward, have to be lessons learned for the police, for the media, for the general public. And, it's just been sad all the way through. And Lancashire Police have obviously tried their best, but things have gone wrong. And what needs to happen is to prevent this happening with any other force. I would agree this has to be not just for learning for Lancashire Police. It has to be a learning for all police forces across the 43 areas. So I hope that the College of Policing, the National Police Chiefs Council, and Lancashire Police themselves, considering they refer themselves to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, who will obviously do their investigation if they deem fit, make recommendations, and learning will come out of it. What I would like to see is another independent review. Lancashire Police are doing their internal review, but that's like marking your own homework. What's needed is an independent review, possibly another force coming in and actually looking at their handling of this case.
What is the point of them putting out news of Nicola Bulley's struggles with alcohol and the menopause? At that news conference that we saw a few days ago, they mentioned specific vulnerabilities. Inzamam Rashid, our correspondent, asked Rebecca Smith, the senior investigating officer, to elaborate on those vulnerabilities. She would not. Yet hours later, they put out news that she'd had these struggles.
Those medical details, confidential medical details, were released not to further the investigation because there was no way that would further it. It was to dampen speculation. And I think some serious questions have to be asked around whether it was necessary. How did that help them or assist them in their investigation? And, moving forward, what are the lessons to be learned from this for them? I think the people that can answer it are Lancashire Police, with an independent review coming in to find exactly why they did. And did they look at the wider impact? Because this really, this whole thing for them is to think about how by the public, what was their key messaging, and how has this left the public perception and trust and confidence? Because certainly when you sit back and, you think about how this is going to impact, are women or anybody really liable to now come forward or give the police the whole story when they feel that such information will be released into the public domain? So those are all the things they needed to kind of weigh up, and you have to look at the benefit and the risk, and you have to be very careful, very cautious when you release such information. All those questions can be answered with investigation and some real lessons learned, because this needs to be stopped, and we need to ensure, policing needs to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And the heart of this is still a family. The stresses that they've had to manage throughout this, my heart just goes out to them.
All right, well, thank you for giving us your thoughts this afternoon. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Let me take you to the scene now in Lancashire. You can see live pictures of St Michael's on Wyre, and this on news that a body has been found in the River Wyre, around a mile, Inzamam Rashid was telling us, from where Nicola Bulley was last seen on the morning of Friday, the 27th of January. The River Wyre there at St Michael's, the focus of a huge search since Nicola Bulley went missing while walking her dog 23 days ago. As we've been telling you, police have confirmed a body has been recovered from the water, about a mile from where her mobile phone was discovered on a bench. Rawcliffe Road police have told us the discovery was made. That runs along the river and has been cordoned off. There we are. That is the scene and the location there, as you can see. Our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt, joins us live now. Martin, you've been in Lancashire following this very closely, and this is a missing persons case now turned into something extremely sad, perhaps feared by many. But this is a case that really has captivated a nation, isn't it?
It has, in a way that many missing persons inquiries don't. And I think there are lots of reasons for why people were so fascinated and gripped by the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. I think, firstly, there were so many captivating selfies that she used to take and post on various social media, and often they were taken in the very place where she disappeared, or where she was last seen, along that riverbank in those two fields where she used to walk her dog. They were captivating photographs, and they showed her in most cases looking very happy, which of course was in complete contrast to what her family were going through. I think also people could identify her because she came across as very ordinary, and she was doing very ordinary things on the morning she vanished. She had given the kids their breakfast, she had dropped the two girls off at school, and then she'd taken the dog out of the car and was walking in the countryside. And those are all very ordinary things that thousands and thousands of people do every day. So they could identify with her and sympathise with her. And at the same time, people were watching those terrible images from the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, thousands and thousands of people dying there. And although people had an awful lot of empathy with the victims in that disaster, I think it didn't quite resonate in the same way as perhaps their attachment to the Nicola Bulley story. She was doing very ordinary things that many, many people do. And I think for that reason, perhaps that reason more than anything, people really just wanted to understand what had happened to her. And I think also another thing was that there wasn't any real firm evidence to explain what had happened. She had, to most people, she'd vanished into thin air. In fact, her partner, Paul Ansell, said that for him and the family, she appeared to have vanished into thin air. But people don't vanish into thin air, do they? There had to be an explanation for her disappearance. And I guess over the next few days, police will finally be able to establish what happened.
We must stress at the moment, no formal identification has been made. The death is being treated as unexplained, but perhaps no coincidence that the lead investigator, Detective Superintendent Rebecca Smith, was part of this intense search a little earlier.
Yes, I mean, I think, of course, people will have to, and the family in particular, will have to wait for the formal identification, but it's not going to be difficult. I mean, for a start, there were no other women reported missing, particularly women around Nicola's age, in that part of Lancashire. There was only one person missing, and now police have recovered a body within a mile of where Nicola Bulley went missing. I mean, so that's one very obvious thing. But of course, DNA tests will very quickly establish if this is Nicola, and of course her clothing, very distinctive clothing she was wearing on the day she vanished, clothing that was used in many police appeals when they were asking people to look out for any sign of those clothing, those bits of clothing, the long ankle length dark gilet, the coat she was wearing underneath that, her jeans, her cut down Wellington boots. So it's not going to be very difficult, I think, for police to make a formal identification. And also bear in mind that the body that they've recovered has been in the water, if it is Nicola, has been in the water for only, just over 3 weeks, very cold water. The body will be quite well preserved, to a degree at least. It's not like recovering a body a year after somebody has disappeared.
Lancashire police have come under criticism, not least this week, for how they've handled their investigation, the mixed messaging, putting out details about Nicola Bulley's medical condition. We do know that they're going to review themselves. Is the fact that a body has been found in the water some kind of vindication? They had suggested, or had insisted really, that was their working hypothesis, that Nicola Bulley had ended up in the River Wyre.
Well, I suppose a lot around that idea of them being vindicated will perhaps be determined by how long, if it is Nicola, how long that body has been in the water. But, there are other things going on. I mean, this is no way the end of this case for Lancashire police. I mean, they'll have to try and establish the circumstances in which, if it is Nicola, her body ended up in the water. They, until now, will have had no clear idea what prompted it, what prompted her to go into the water. They've said all along, or certainly from the first week, that their main working hypothesis was that Nicola had gone into the water. They hadn't talked about an accident, whether they believed that she had chosen to take her own life. I mean, all of that will have to be determined, perhaps may never be absolutely determined, but there are, of course, other issues going on in the wider sense around this case. The police watchdog, the IOPC, is still considering whether to launch an investigation particularly into the police contact with Nicola and her family on the 10th of January, so 17 days before she vanished. We know, because they told us, that police and health professionals have been called on a welfare concern issue to the family house. We don't know any more details about that. We don't even know whether the welfare concern was around Nicola or her partner or even the two children. So all of that will go into the mix, if you like, as other people other than Lancashire Police pick over this investigation and see what was done properly and perhaps what wasn't done properly. And is there any link? I mean, this is particularly what the IOPC will be looking at, is was there any link between that call to the family's house on the 10th of January and Nicola's disappearance 17 days later? Was there anything that the police did on the 10th of January or didn't do that connected those two incidents?
All right, Martin, thank you very much indeed. Martin Brunt there. It is exactly 3:30. You're watching Sky News. It's Sunday afternoon. Let's take you to the scene at St Michael's on Wire there. You can see police activity. This is Rawcliffe Road beside the River Wire, around a mile from where Nicola Bulley disappeared. And the breaking news this afternoon, let me read you, in fact, some of the statement from Lancashire Police. We were called at 11:36 this morning to report of a body in the River Wire close to Rawcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water, and have sadly recovered a body. Now, I should say no formal identification has yet been carried out. So, in its words, the force is unable to say whether this is Nicola Bulley at this time. Procedures to identify the body are ongoing as they would be. The force currently treating the death as unexplained. Lancashire Police saying Nicola Bulley's family have been informed of developments and our thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. Let's get the thoughts of former Met Police Chief Superintendent Parm Sandhu. Very good afternoon to you. Your thoughts on this development?
Good afternoon. It's a very sad development in this case that has gripped the country. I think everybody has been sitting on tenterhooks thinking that there would be a positive outcome. And although at the moment we still don't know that this is the body of Nicola Bulley, there's a lot of assumptions being made. And as Martin quite rightly points out, it won't take long for that formal identification to take place. But it's a Sunday afternoon and the family will have received that news and they will be sitting there waiting to find out if it is or isn't Nicola. It has been an extremely complex case, not just because of Lancashire Police and the amount of resources and people that they've dedicated. You know, Nicola has been missing for 3 weeks. They've dedicated resources, helicopters, drones, search teams, and the length of time that they've continued with that investigation. You know, it's a lot of time to look for one missing person. And if this is that end of that investigation, there are still questions and reviews that need to happen about the way that that investigation was conducted and about the communication that they had with the public. And I think that speaking on a personal basis, looking at the investigation, they have dedicated a huge amount of people, resources, a team of detectives to look at all of the leads that the public came up for them. But I think what has been lacking is the social media side of it and how to manage the social media, how to manage the people who descended on the village, and then how to manage the messaging that they themselves put out as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've come under intense fire, Lancashire Police, not least this week, for this messaging. Now that a body has been found, it's important to stress we don't know yet, not confirmed whether it is Nicola Bulley, but what is the point of putting out details of her medical history, like as they did? When they had talked about vulnerabilities, wouldn't then elaborate, but then a few hours later did.
I think it's really sad that they did put out that very sensitive information into the public domain, especially as I know that that information was not given to the search team. So the private search team who were looking in the river may have modified their search or looked in a different area. So it wasn't shared with the people who are actually part of the investigation team, but it's been shared with the public for no reason at all. And I think that needs to be part of the wider review. But for today, you know, it's looking at the identification and whether or not it is Nicola. And as you quite rightly say, we don't know it's her at this point. So we need to be told, we need to find out. And the family themselves need to have that little time to take in that information, whichever way it goes. So it has been an extremely complex case. And at the same time, the actual investigators themselves have come into criticism for their clothing, the whole social media, and about, you know, there are bigger issues at play here with the media policing and whether or not we need to look at the way communication and messages do go out to the public.
Has the investigation been distracted somewhat, therefore, from looking for a 45-year-old mother of two, given the fact that there's all this social media people, social comments made on social media, people visiting the scene?
The fact that this captured the public's imagination kept the resources there. Otherwise, it's not normal. This is really unusual to have this amount of investigation teams and resources and money spent on a missing person, because there are about 150, 170,000 people who are reported missing every year. They don't get this amount of investigation on each of those cases. And there are plenty of other people who will be sitting there thinking, I have got a loved one who's missing now. The fact that the media showed an interest, social media shared that interest, and you know, that's what kept it in the public eye, and that's why there was so much resource pumped into this investigation. Had it not been the case, I think this investigation would have been scaled down at an earlier date. So where the family were giving media interviews and the friends were giving media interviews, it kept it in the public interest. And as Martin Brunter said, she was an ordinary lady who was doing an ordinary day of dropping off her kids and walking the dog. And if it is her, you know, the whole reason why it remained in the public media, in the public interest even, was because of that media interest.
Do you think Lancashire police might in time feel vindicated by the fact that they had talked about their working hypothesis is that Nicola Bulley had been in the water, and now we have the discovery of a body just a mile in the River Wye from where Nicola Bulley disappeared 23 days ago?
I think it's quite awful to think of the police officers themselves feeling vindicated. I think the police officers who have been up and down that river how many times, diving in and out of that cold water, really trying hard to bring Nicola home, will be sad and disappointed at the outcome if it is her. So I don't think they'll be vindicated. I think that's a really horrible thing to say, because police officers go out there to do the best that they can for the community that they serve. And I don't think any one of them is going to feel vindicated because a body has been found. And that's quite an awful thought.
Palm Sandhu, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Some more on our breaking news than we've been telling you for the past hour or so, following a statement from Lancashire Police, which were called at 11:36 this morning. They have disclosed to reports of a body in the River Wye, close to Rawcliffe Road. A body has now been recovered. Important to say, no formal identification has been carried out. Procedures to identify the body ongoing. It is being treated as unexplained. Nicola Bulley's family, though, have been informed of developments, and Lancashire Police say their thoughts are with them at this most difficult of times. We ask that their privacy is respected. Sky's Katerina Vitozzi is in St Michael's on Wye for us this afternoon. You've been following this from the start. For 23 days, Katerina, the family and the public, such a close-knit community in St Michael's, had hoped for a positive outcome.
Yes, as you say, this is a close-knit community. The people that saw Nicola Bulley walking along that riverside towpath knew her dog, knew her phone from looking at the wallpaper and seeing a photo of her family on that phone that was left on the bench, which started this unprecedented missing persons search. We're stood on what is the corner of a road called Rawcliffe Road in this small village. This is the main road that runs through the town. The police cordon coming into effect very, very quickly after those initial reports to police at 11:36 this morning of a body, being found in the river. And very quickly, as we have to say, they have throughout this investigation, police responding with search teams. There was a helicopter in the air, and then underwater dive teams deployed extremely quickly. And then that update from Lancashire Police that they have sadly found a body in that stretch of the river, as yet waiting for a formal identification to take place. As you say, our team have been in this village pretty much since the first day of Nicola Bulley's disappearance, and we've spoken over that time to countless friends, family members who've described her as quite simply a lovely person, the sort of neighbour anyone would want to have, as one person described her to us, and just hoping beyond hope that she would be found and be able to be brought home to her two daughters, Harriet and Sophia, who've been told, or who we have been told have been simply at home waiting for their mummy to return, waiting for her to come back to give them a cuddle. And over the past few weeks, Nicola Bulley's friends and family have been speaking with media. They've been conducting their own searches on foot around the village, around the footpath where she was last known to be seen. And we've also seen people come to the village who didn't even know Nicola, who just wanted to be here to help if they could. There was an impromptu search party organised very, very quickly from the village tennis club, where friends and families of Nicola printed out little maps that people could follow the route, search. There were numbers they could call if they were able to spot anything. In this instance, that search you would expect to come to a close in terms of the community search. As yet to stress, we are still waiting for any formal identification of the body that has been found by the police here in the River Wyre today. But as you say, 23 days on, Nicola Bulley's family telling us on Friday that every day is a struggle. They were waiting, they were hoping for some sort of a breakthrough that would bring them some clue as to what happened to the missing mum of two. And just to give you a sense of the scale of the search here by Lancashire Police, giving us that very detailed update during the week. They themselves described it as a search that was unprecedented in their force, for a search for a missing person. Hundreds of homes had been searched. We know that 15 miles, if not a bit more, of river has been searched all the way to the coastline, all the way through to Morecambe Bay. On top of the police search, there have been independent search and rescue experts that have come to assist very early on in the search, we were even seeing people volunteer metal search detectors who were coming in, who'd asked the police if they could come with their metal detectors to see if they could find anything in the undergrowth, anything in the bushes around the bench where her phone was found on that morning when she was last seen. There's been such a volume of search, trying people wanting to help, people wanting to try and do what they can to be part of this search. And just to recap that news today, that a body found here in the River Wyre by police search teams is yet waiting formal identification.
Katerina, for now, many thanks indeed. Katerina Vitozzi in St Michael's on Wyre. This is the scene at St Michael's on Wyre, or around the area, just a mile down from where a body has been found This morning, police were first alerted. Inzamam Rashid was telling us there'd been intense search activity, which we were told about from 1 o'clock this afternoon. But now in this statement from police, we can confirm that 11:36 it was, Lancashire police saying they were called to reports of a body in the River Wyre close